What's up, everybody? Simon here. On this episode, I have George Ackerman. He is not only a very smart individual, it's Dr. George Ackerman. He does have a PhD in criminal justice, an MBA. He also is Sharon's son and has created Together for Sharon, who passed away with Parkinson's disease. And today we're going to talk about the importance of Parkinson's disease, what it means to families. We're going to talk about the journey that George and Sharon have experienced together. We're going to talk about some famous people that have Parkinson's as well, and really just go into the topic of what it's like to not only have someone you love that has Parkinson's, but also try to battle such a disease. George, thanks for coming on and sharing this story about Sharon. Truly appreciate it.
I wanted to thank your listeners and, of course, you for giving us the opportunity. It's really important. It's from my heart, and it's an honor again to be with you.
Same. Before we started recording, you mentioned you're not trying to sell anything. You're not trying to do anything like this. And I respect that. I think a lot of people that come on podcasts are always pushing some agenda. This is truly from your heart. And, why you're a busy man. You have degrees. You're a doctor. You have PhD in criminal justice. I'm sure you're busy. Why is the importance? What do you feel inside your heart that makes you want to reach out to podcasts, to people, to spread the awareness of Parkinson's and the journey your mother has experienced and you have experienced?
Before I became a caregiver, I was a lawyer, and then I became a police officer, and I did my PhD in aiding African-American mothers who lost their loved ones due to murder and crime. I've always had a passion for helping others. First part of my life, again, was about really being a victim's advocate. But when my mother got very sick, she had Parkinson's disease for 15 years, but it didn't really threaten her life till, unfortunately, the last 4, when in a way I was thrown into being a caregiver. But I found now, after a few years of this, that it's not just about my mother and my journey anymore. It's about everyone. In the last year, I've been honored enough to interview 600 people myself around the world, from Africa to Canada to the UK to Spain to France to Australia to you name it, even Iceland. And what I do every day is wake up, and I'm just inspired by all those out there who are still fighting. Unfortunately, it's too late for my family, but my mother lives through our message, and even being here with you and your listeners become like family, because like you said in the beginning, I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing it because I truly care. I want people out there right now suffering from Parkinson's and caretakers to know that we love them, we support them, and we want nothing in return except for a cure for this disease.
Yeah, and then I would say that the only famous person or a person that I know with Parkinson's personally, and fortunately for me, is Michael J. Fox. One of my favorite actors. Back to the Future, etc. But he clearly came out recently in the public eye as well. I've seen some press on him, but Parkinson's affects. It's a brain condition that affects movement, mental health, sleep, you name it. And I feel like there's not enough attention to it. So thank you for continuing to bring attention to such a disease. We're going to go into some questions later on. Like, for example, Elon Musk recently has launched Neuralink, which he has stated in the past it may fix diseases such as Parkinson's and other mobility issues and brain function issues. We'll talk about that. But let's first talk about Sharon. Obviously, your mother meant so much to you that you've changed careers almost twice in some trajectory, if not more than twice, with your professional background. Describe your upbringing? Like, what keeps you holding on to that love, those feelings? How was your upbringing with Sharon?
Mother was my best friend, and I don't think I'd be the man I am today if it wasn't for her. She sacrificed a lot. She raised my brother and I by herself. She was unfortunately divorced, but she herself was a loving, caring, strong woman, independent, and she lived on her own. She also was a school teacher and had a master's degree, and again gave all that up. So at the time, my father could go to medical school. So she really did, sacrifice. So when I found that she was in that time of need, I swore I would never let her either feel alone or be alone. And we actually were able, even though it was tough, there were many days I was burnt out, stressed, wanted to give up, but we kept her at our own home that we actually bought her that was located close to mine. So I was able to be close around, and we never put her in a home. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but she made me swear to her that we wouldn't do that. So that was a challenge because I'm not trained for Parkinson's. Most people aren't. It's the fastest growing neurological disorder in the world. It's not just something that affects, the U.S. or one state. It's actually around the world. About 1 million people in the U.S., 10 million throughout the rest of the country. This is serious stuff. Now I'm finding everyone I speak to, even on these talks, has somebody they know, and now it's neighbors or a cousin or just popping up for some reason, even more and more. In the United States, finally, through the Michael J. Fox Foundation, they passed the first legislation last December called the National Plan to End Parkinson's. It's going to be the first bill in history to hopefully help those diagnosed and caregivers. What I'm hoping is that if it passes and signed into law, that other countries, wherever you are, your viewers are, can also use it as a kind of a boilerplate to also pass the same and help those people around the world as well.
Definitely. And right now there is no cure for it, and there's no
Right.
way to slow it down. It's almost as if
Yeah, they do believe science now is being advanced. That's actually not just sports, but exercise 45 minutes a day can deter the speed of the progress of the disease. So there's things in the UK, dancing for Parkinson's, there's boxing for Parkinson's. There's so many things out there, and that's what togetherforsharon.com is. It's completely free. It's a place where when I was going through caregiving, I felt alone, and I found so many incredible people and resources that I decided to put them all completely free again on our website. And again, last year I've interviewed over 600 people. So if you hit interviews, you'll be able to actually read everybody's different interview, from people diagnosed to people working at UK Parkinson's, Michael J. Fox Foundation, and so many amazing stories. So these people will realize that, again, they're not alone.
that's wonderful. I'm glad you're doing that for those that need the help, because it sounds like you were not able to find it. And again, the internet seems like it's been around for such a long time, but it truly has not. And now all these things, including podcasts and YouTube and websites, are coming out helping. What were some of the early signs? Do you remember? I know it's been a long time since your mother was diagnosed with Parkinson's, but what are some of the early signs of Parkinson's disease?
Sadly, she passed on 1/1/2020, so she had it for about 15 years. So for those 15, about most of the time until the last four. She only had some trouble with her left arm, like stiffness, but she didn't really show too much, or she was hiding it from us. She really was a really incredible woman. She didn't want other people to know her burden. And she wanted, even now, if she was here, she said, George, don't do the podcast. Go spend time with your family. My wife might agree, but again, this is, for me, it's a journey that I need to solve. And the only way that's going to be is to find a cure for other people suffering. But that was the main sign. Unfortunately, after the last 4 years of her life, she went to study at a university, and I think possibly they changed her medicine too drastically. And literally, that was the day where it kind of was like an escalator. Just every day was worse and worse. Tremendous amount of weight. She found it's called dystonia, where your toes start curling. She had movements like involuntary, but not as external as bad as Mr. Michael J. Fox, like you mentioned. And the problem with Parkinson's, every single person is treated differently. So what happened to me and my mother is not the same as what happened to someone else. It is not. There's a misconception that's an old man disease. It's not. It can happen to females, males. It can happen to anyone. We don't know the reasoning right now. There is science, though, and I've spoke with scientists that, again, exercise can decrease the speed of the acceleration of getting the disease, the progression. Also, diet and things like that. I still feel, and I can't prove it, but there's a big push now to show that pesticides and water contamination and things from the environment caused by man might have caused this. And I think it is true because my mother had a nice house that was kept nice, but she had mold, she had termites, and a lot of things. And who knows what they sprayed? But she was really healthy, so she had nothing else throughout her life. Parkinson's can also affect, and it really showed towards the end, the ability to even speak, to move. She used to love to walk, but she went from a walking a few miles to a walker, from a cane to a walker for 2 years, and from the walker to the wheelchair and then bed bound. So it's really horrific to see what it can do to anyone, including your loved one. And I was there holding her hand throughout the whole thing. The one thing I couldn't do is, answer. I was always honest, but I couldn't tell her what was going to happen next. And the saddest thing is she had 3 grandchildren she loved to spend time with on Sundays, blowing bubbles. And now today I walk by the backyard and I don't see that. And it's really still heartbreaking.
What age did she pass? At what age?
She's very young, in my opinion, 69. I mean, today I might be incorrect, but I think we should be living to 85 and, with the technology. So, we look both young, but I myself have had spine surgeries and things, and health is not the best. But this is something that you can't. You could try and do certain things like exercise, but you can't plan for something. And the worst thing is she actually got late onset dementia, which also complicated things because you might know, or many. And I wish I didn't know, but dementia brings hallucinations and delusions. Times she didn't even know who was in the room, if the people were alive or were there that passed away. And it's really, some days it was kind of funny to her because they were cute, but other days it was a nightmare where we had to remove her phone because she was calling the police in fear of her life and safety. Police officer reserve now. You're not trained for your own mother or family.
You're just not, as they come in. I mean, as a police officer, it's tough. You're getting a lot of calls, and of course, it's not their mother, but they're trying to do their best they can. That's crazy. I think the dementia part is such a scary part, and that almost kind of correlates to the Parkinson's part, where they're both brain diseases, you can say. Let's talk a little bit about scientists. You mentioned you talked to quite a few scientists out there, and what is their take on, say, Elon Musk's Neuralink? Like, technology is advancing like crazy, right? They're going to be able to now plug into your brain and fix some type of neural waves, supposedly. And in the next 10 years, who knows where that leads to or what happens. Do you think this is something that a Parkinson's patient can benefit from, or even a dementia patient can benefit from?
This last year, they had a breakthrough called a biomarker where they're able, and again, I'm not a scientist myself, but they're able possibly to put a needle in the back, the spine, and determine if you have Parkinson's. So that was founded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation. Again, I recommend everyone to look it up on their own, do your own research, but that's a huge breakthrough because a lot of people either misdiagnose or not diagnosed in time. Like my mother, we didn't have even had a chance. By the time I came in, it was way too late. I mean, if I had come in 15 years earlier, maybe it could have helped exercise or done more. But again, you can't really look back. So I always try to take the darkness and bring light to the situation, and that's fighting for everybody else. But yeah, I've had the honor. If you go to togetherforsharon.com and scroll through all the links, there's one that dropped down that goes to scientists and researchers, and been able to interview about 20 throughout the world. Some of the leading ones who have books recorded throughout the country called End Parkinson's Disease. Dr. Dorsey is one of them, and Dr. Oken. But these individuals, that's all they do day and night. They dedicate their life to dealing hand on hand, one on one with the patient. So a lot of the things they do are trials. So I do recommend individuals diagnosed to participate. The only way we're going to find a cure and be able to advance even more, like you said, with these technologies, even Elon Musk, is for people to participate. And then that's how they're going to change the world for future people.
Yeah, and solve a lot of sorrow. I mean, when you love someone, I would imagine having them witness deteriorate over a certain amount of period of time is not easy, especially the way you love that person.
Last year was probably honestly the roughest thing I've seen a lot of my life, but the toughest thing because you just see her getting worse every day. I'm actually finished my book, and the hardest thing about even writing it was one chapter is literally her last year, and I took video and film pictures. I will never share that. That's more for science if they ever need it, but I did keep a journal, and I'm going to share everything of my thoughts. They were either the tough times, sad, anger, feeling like I was going to give up, but then fighting for her. Everything like the hardcore details are going to be in the book. But that was hard because it brought back memories. And I do a lot of this talking, and I'm trying to be strong. But there are some days, even 4 years later, that I walk into the room, see my wife, and I start crying. And I'm 6'2", 200-pound guy like you, probably big. You know, people. That's another thing. I was a male caregiver. I gave a speech at a male caregiver event last night, and I was shocked to even realize that there really aren't any male caregivers either speaking out. There's not even another book out there in the world that I've seen, and I did a lot of research with a son who lost their mother due to Parkinson. So I'm actually proud of that. Even on these talk shows, somebody once said, "You're the first time we've actually covered Parkinson." So I feel that this is not just about a little podcast we're doing now. We're actually together changing the world for the better. And if even one person listening can now be aware of Parkinson's, then we've done our best. And I do encourage everyone to share this. Support you, support Simon, and keep this fight going. Because again, I become family with the host like you. This is not just again about a topic and then see you later. I'm going to add it to my world and to share it and station going until there is a cure.
Absolutely. I've also had an interesting guest prior to you with brain coders or brain mapping. I'm wondering, I have the CEO of that company coming in where they track brain waves and so forth. I'm wondering if there's some type of correlation between what they track and health and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and so forth. So that would be an interesting follow-up question for me for them after we've shared, and maybe you guys could connect at some point as well. All right, let's continue. George, why did you want to be a police officer? I mean, that's such a
Good question. Unfortunately, I've been brought up in Brooklyn, New York, and I've seen a lot of crime. And I always said there's people out there again who can't protect themselves, like children and things. And I always said I don't mind putting my life on the line to help others. I was going to really go federal law, but I always loved. I felt I have a passion for teaching too, education. I like to learn from my students, and then they go into the field. So I've taught at the police academy. I've had a lot of it, worked with the Coast Guard, U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, but I just really, I've given my life to that field, almost again, similar to the Parkinson's field, because there's a lot of people out there that might not, it's sad. Some are ashamed to come out about Parkinson's. Some don't want their family or work to know because there are people who have to step down and lose their livelihood. So if I have to be in the front lines, whether in law enforcement, law, or Parkinson's advocacy, then I have no problem doing that. And again, I get a little grief, even though I have the best support in the world from my family. But instead of being with the three kids, a lot of nights, late nights, I'm here, I'm posting, but I know that they're going to be okay. And I don't want them to get this, or myself or you or anyone. And there's still a lot of people. I have a podcast now, but it's really just on Parkinson's, where I interview people who have Parkinson's or those fighting to help advocate. One gentleman, his name's Steven, he creates mugs. I should have brought it, but he creates mugs, and we just teamed up. And he has a mug that says "Together for Sharon." Thing made goes literally to him. Like, I do not want a penny. It says it everywhere. If you go to my website, you'll see we do not accept money. We'll hand it back to you. We'll send it back. We do encourage different organizations like the Michael J. Fox Foundation, but this is not about money. This is about I don't want people to suffer, and he has struggles even buying the medicines. If you can't have your medicines, you can't function.
so the medicines do kind of play an important role in maybe stabilizing you or the individual, I should say, a little bit. How expensive?
Yeah, they have a few. Unfortunately, it doesn't. It helps like more with the shaking and tremors. He's a graphic artist. He was a truck driver. He had to leave his career. He's become one of my best friends. I love him, and he's this big guy, sweet. You can see in Stephen Williams, Parkin shirts, T-shirts. But that's what he does. He makes funny Parkinson sayings like quotes. But I just did an interview with him tomorrow. I'm actually interviewing the Secretary of Health, the Department of Florida. So it's going to be a big interview asking how they help Floridians with Parkinson. But to answer your question, the medicines do help, but unfortunately, again, it's not a cure. There's another thing called DBS, deep brain stimulation, that some people do, and they've sworn that it's changed their lives. I have one individual named Dan O'Brien who is actually a guitarist with Santana and some of the biggest, Eric Clapton. He had to stop because he had Parkinson. So he said after several years, he was very stressed. He couldn't even play a guitar. He did the DBS, the brain surgery, and now he showed me on the podcast. He pressed the button and he couldn't stop shaking. He pressed the button again, gone. Tough surgery to do on your brain. Say they do it while you're awake, which is hard. I mean, I had 2 major spine surgeries. I can't imagine, and they didn't even work, unfortunately. But having that without, while being awake. But he did say it's life changing. But again, it's different for everybody. So you have to do your own research.
Funny enough, we just launched a spine surgeon podcast today on the Ideal Hour. So you got to check it out. It's a young spine surgeon who's done thousands. I don't know if they work or don't work, but interesting feedback he's provided. I'm really looking forward. I think personally, on like a tech side and living in the Bay Area, I don't necessarily agree with someone implanting a chip into their brain to control a computer mouse, or who knows who could hack the brain, so to speak, right, and make you do things you should not be doing. But I think in cases where maybe you lost some movement, mobility, neurological disorders and stuff, I think what Elon Musk and others may be doing is revolutionary. And I could see how that person you described, Steve, I believe his name is, with the chip that's kind of planted in, I believe that's the same guy we were talking about, can turn it on and off. And I do think in the next, like just out of hunch, in the next, within the next 10 years, if that Neuralink takes off, it could really change the game for a lot of mobility, movement, paraplegics, et cetera, because a lot of the times from what I read is the mind shuts something off. It doesn't understand anymore, or your vision, or it's all mind related, right? And I think if Elon could take that to a positive and, cure stuff with it, that would be great, even as frightening as it is on what could happen with control, right? What were some of the you mentioned earlier, sometimes you get emotional about it, but what were some of the highlights of dealing with Parkinson's with your mom, like the joys and some of the bad parts? Like what were in your mind, if you go, well, although I battled this has been the low point and these were the high points. What does someone experience in every situation? It's different.
Best part was seeing her with her grandchildren, because she tried, and she just lit up, she smiled a little. So even if she forgot about the hell that we were going through, and she was for even a few moments, she loved Sunday mornings, coloring with them and blowing bubbles in the backyard. And that was the best time, but the worst were very dark. And seeing your loved one like that and feeling helpless is the worst. Is the best word, I guess, because in my life I'm a problem solver. I don't give up. Like you see, I reach out, put myself out there. And when you can't, when there's almost like a wall, imagine your back, like when there's like a wall, it kind of smacks you in the face, and you try and punch through it, but there's nothing you can do. When I look back today, we tried everything. We tried therapy, chiropractors, back doctors for pain. For she also had fibromyalgia. We tried music therapy. We tried physical therapy. I mean, we even tried. They licensed by the law, if you follow the rules, which we did. The state of Florida has medical marijuana. We even tried that, and that was a funny story because I'm a cop and I don't believe in it, but I do believe in it for people suffering. Unfortunately, it didn't help her because it's a long story, but the doctors don't speak to the distillery. So either we just used a pill, she would either fall over in the wheelchair, or it was just making her even more delusional. So dementia can use much of that. We went to every kind of doctor, from Parkinson to psychologist to this and that. And again, it was like literally, if I start over today, there's nothing else we could have done. And it's just a horrible, horrible disease that can take someone's life. And they say, again, you don't die from Parkinson's, you die with it. But my mother had no other illnesses in my view or in her medical history. So I believe you do. And there's also 5 stages that I didn't know about. And I don't understand it still today why it went so fast. And we tried big time with the health, but after a certain point, she was so sick. We just started. She loved chocolate cake, and I bought her like 100 chocolate cakes. You can't. At some point, you have to just make sure she's at least smiling a little. My wife was heaven because my mother liked, like anyone to feel good, look good, and she was really doing bad. Her hair, everything was just skinny. And my wife brought in like a pedicure, manicure, hair people. Unfortunately, some days she couldn't even do it. One thing I do want to point out, which I am grateful for, is when I was a kid, my mother loved Broadway, and she would bring me to all the Broadway plays. We saw Katz, and her favorite song was "Memory." So we had music therapists come in. Again, some weeks she couldn't do it, some she did. The last week before she passed, and she had a lot of trouble like even moving anymore. But if you look on togetherforsharon.com and scroll to the main page, it's a video of me. I've been playing guitar for 20 years just for fun, but it's me and the music therapist, and we're playing Memory from my mother. And at the very end, you might not be able to hear it. She said, "Thank you, I loved it." But those were the last words she ever said until she passed. So I was grateful that because I didn't take a lot of video because she was just looking not like her. Yeah, that was a great memory I still have today.
Well, George, it sounds to me that, and I don't know your situation, and thank you for sharing it, but I'm sure it goes deeper than what we could describe in such a short period of time. But to me, it sounds like you've done everything above and beyond for your mom during her time and during and after, and you're continuing her memory, but also you're making other people aware that this is a problem. And as you continue to push that agenda and that awareness, I think you will help other families. And that's a big thing. Do you think your mom's watching over you up in heaven, or if you believe in heaven, etc.?
I hope so. She was just an incredibly good person, caring, selfless, and just dedicated to her family. Unfortunately, again, this disease robbed her not just of passing 69 years old, but really 20 years before. But she never. We bought her a nice place in a little fake lake. Thought she'd enjoy 10 years, just looking in the water, and she just never had that opportunity. So, I mean, I hope she is, but like I said, I think I'm getting burnt out, and I just keep going, even though you're supposed to. One rule to take care of yourself before, but I just find that I can't rest until there's a cure because I don't, again, want others to go through this. So even if she is looking down and she knows I'm trying hard, but she would say stop. She would say don't do anymore. I'm trying hard again. I'm limiting myself a little bit, but I love doing these because I meet incredible people like you and your audience who, again, inspire me. Even just the short time together means the world to me and my family. So sorry, Mom, I'm going to keep fighting no matter what you say.
You know what? And that's another interesting question that pops up into my mind. And obviously I watch television as you do and your kids do, and we try to limit it. But sometimes on these shows, I see someone or like a show where someone speaks to their loved one that passed through a medium or a medium. I believe that's what it's called. Never tried it myself.
Right.
Have you ever considered it? Is this something against your religion, or because there's such a connection with your mother? I'm wondering if and there's some famous ones out there where I've seen on TV where they were able to have the spirits supposedly that passed talk to the individual and visit. Have you ever considered something like that?
Always open to anything and everyone except for illegal things since I'm a cop and lawyer. But I would love to even do a podcast with someone like that, and just that would be fun to me. But I'm not a big believer in it, but it's even like magic. We know magic's beautiful, but there's tricks and fake thing and behind the scenes. But I definitely have nothing against anything. I'll try anything once. I mean, like I said, that would be a beautiful podcast and interesting. I
I
don't know
think
if I'd want. I don't. If I start being sad though, I don't know how good that'll be to tape it live.
I think for someone like you, and if you
I
find a
mean,
good one, that might be. It may not necessarily close a chapter in your life,
right.
but I think for you, and I'm not a psychologist or anything like that,
Yeah.
but for you, I think it would be a joy. Maybe your mom is out there looking after you and your family and loves what you're doing. maybe she's going to give you some direction if that person can reach out and to them and say, hey, spend more time with your family, enjoy those moments extra, give us some time. But overall, what an incredible story. And, again, Parkinson's is not really well known, guys, if you're watching. The only person I've known that has come out and said it, and you mentioned there's a lot of people that are keeping it within the family, is Michael J. Fox. And I loved his movies growing up. And
there's a lot of people you're probably not even aware, like Muhammad Ali had it, Jana Reno. Jana Reno was an attorney general, Neil Diamond, Ozzy Osbourne. Unfortunately, it's more and more and more now. It's a famous comedian, also Ed Begley Jr. is an actor. So unfortunately, again, Linda Ronstadt. As we sit here, I can continue, and the list goes. I've actually reached out to all of them. I was able to get Kenny G, he doesn't have Parkinson, but he wrote, actually he's played a song because my mother loved Kenny G, and did a whole speech for her, and it's on my website. I tried to reach out recently to Jack Osborne to speak because I really wanted to hear his side as a caregiver, but I haven't been able to reach him. But I think I'm not a big celebrity person, but I do think we need them because they have more of a reach. That we're family in this fight. I had the honor a few weeks ago to meet Michael J. Fox. Put the band on for my mother. I hand them out for free for Parkinson's awareness. It just says in memory of Sharon, but it was cool because he now knows about my mother. He knows about what I do. He knows about togetherforsharon.com, and he knows that we love him, and he's a hero because, like you said, he had it around 40, 30 years old. He could have never done a thing, could have kept quiet, but he fought back. He spoke out. He's a hero to so many, forever and even beyond. But unfortunately, a few days ago, I don't know if you saw, when I met him, he wasn't doing great, but he was still smiling. We spoke for a minute, but he was brought out on a award show the other day, and that he was in a wheelchair, which is really shocking. It hurts me and makes me want to get off and go fight again for more instead of taking a break like we just talked. So, yeah, it's just heartbreaking.
it truly is. And, and I can't believe I forgot Muhammad Ali because I'm big boxing fan. But
she interviewed his daughter, one of his daughters, about it, and she told me some incredible stories. So, it's just tough.
it's tough. It's tough. And you know what? I applaud you and your family as well. I think your wife, we should bring her up and say, she's very patient and supportive, and that's a big dynamic in the home, and I assume she's been supportive for so long because you've been dealing with this for so long. So kudos to her as well.
We actually have started. We only have 8 episodes. We started 2 podcasts. One is called Q&A with Sharon's son George, where I interview people for Parkinson, and then the other one is called the Together for Sharon podcast, where it's my wife and I. So it's really amazing because we have the female perspective. So we interview together, but I like that one the best because mine alone are not as fun. Unfortunately, she's actually, more limited with time than me. We only do one a month because of the kids, but such a cool thing to have her with me because she was my mother's caregiver. Even though some days I was alone with my mother, she took care of the children, and if I didn't have her, I wouldn't have been able to spend as much time with my mother. A lot of people we didn't get to because of time, but they can't do as much, unfortunately, as I was able to because I had the support. We also had to spend $12,000 a month just for caregivers to watch over my mother when I wasn't there because she couldn't sleep because of her. Parkinson's also causes major stomach issues, and that's another podcast. It was so horrifying. And as a male caregiver, it's also tough because we can't be in the shower, we can't help in the bath, so it was very challenging time. But again, you have to just try and do the best that you can with what you have.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the financial burden of just caregivers. It's and really making sure that that person, even if it's an assisted living home, it's and believe me, I know right now that assisted living homes, some people don't have the choice or the time or the capacity, but they're definitely not as good of care as a loved family member. I mean, I've known horror stories. We've had people in healthcare in our family. So you did wonders for your mother, just keeping her out of it, and not saying, that's a bad thing for anyone that doesn't have that privilege. But those are, it's definitely not the same level of care, and I know them personally. Thank you for sharing these. I always ask all my guests, obviously we'll link all your info, your website below as well, togetherforsharon.com, the podcasts and anything else you want to share. And you could share this podcast. I do love the fact that you and your wife do a podcast. I sometimes ask my wife to come on, but she hasn't done it yet. And I think it's a great dynamic. Plus,
You
it's
have to show her hours and tell her that'll get her.
yeah, I gotta force her. But it's good also for the kids to see you guys for memory, like if they ever want to go back and
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think of it.
yeah, it's nice.
Actually, I wish I had done this with my mother, but by the last year it was too. I would have. That's if you want to leave. Well, one thing I dream. I wish I regret. That's the only thing I never even thought about till we just said this. So thank you. But I wish I had a show with my mother. That would have been not really just about Parkinson, just about interviewing her about her life, and that would have been like you could have clicked on a button, and it would have been heartbreaking, but it would have been so cool. And that's one thing. You just like I'm gonna have to talk about that again, but that would have been so amazing, and I wish I had done that. I mean,
What is the one thing you would tell yourself when you were younger, or if you could go back or change anything in life, and would that still be the answer you wish you could do?
yeah, I never even thought of it till this moment. I've been doing it 4 years. If I could have gone back and done, but I would have had to have caught her before the last 4 years, which is also very hard because I didn't really even know. I blame a lot. I didn't even know what Parkinson's was, and I'm almost trying to relive it and help others not go under what I had. But I do have one last thing, if I could say. I always end every podcast, mine or anyone. This is for your audience and you. We support. We love you. We support you. We care about you. And you're never alone. I will advocate, and also Simon will for you. And together, our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started because even though I'm not, every morning I wake up, I look at my site and see another story or journey, somebody, whether it's a family member or a person diagnosed or foundation or somebody, and it just recharges me to get going and to get out there. And, I'm just grateful for our time together. And I consider you family too. And hope your wife will join you in your crusade. But I'm really grateful for all of your audience. And again, this is just me. We're not a foundation. I have to fix a lot of people say that by accident. We do not, repeat, do not want money. I do want a cure. And we want nothing else that everybody else knows that I'm not going to stop. And I know Simon along my side and others won't stop until we can keep spreading awareness for Parkinson's until it ends forever. So thank you again.
Love that, and thank you for choosing the ideal hour to come and share your experience with Sharon and the Parkinson's disease. Definitely look into, just off the top of my head, a medium where you may be able to reach in this realm. It's not illegal, which is great. Or I don't know. Some of them maybe. Yeah, you got to be careful. So double check. But yeah, just keep on moving, and I think that's always the goal in everything we do, right? One step after the other to make sure that the journey lives on and the memories live on, and love having you on here. Whatever you need, you know how to reach out to us. So thank you. So guys, here you have it. Yeah, George, come on, talk about his mother, Sharon. He obviously deeply loves and loved his mother. She meant a great deal to him. We're not all lucky to have mothers that have cared for us, and we have not all cared for our mothers the way that he has. But it's a very inspiring story where you have to show love and affection, and you have to put your journey to the side to care for someone you really love. And George has done that, and he's proven he deeply still loves his mother. And I hope one day there is a cure for such a disease that really deteriorates someone you love. And it's not easy to witness or experience. And George is courageous, and his wife and his family are courageous for sharing this story and continuing to share Sharon's story. So thank you for doing that on here, and I appreciate it.